good morning. Welcome back.
Well, good morning, Chris. And, yeah, we did get it out of the House, and it was, right down to the wire, as always. Had a meeting with the president earlier that day. Well, we didn't have the vote actually on the bill till 6:30 in the morning the next morning, so technically the day before. But, look, there are concerns with the bill. You're always trying to improve it. One thing that we learned kind of through this process, because every speaker is different, every kind of battle is different. House Freedom Caucus members didn't draw a red line throughout the process. We just said, look, these are some of the concepts, some of the things we're concerned about, and we'd like you to help us work on them. We provided alternatives and different ways to get there and negotiated the whole way throughout. But at the end, it was actually the folks that drew the red lines, and I'm going to characterize those folks, and I think rightly so, especially as the SALT guys, the state and local tax guys. They said they weren't going to vote for any bill that didn't deal with their high state taxes and give them a federal tax credit for that. So essentially what it means is that their states tax the living daylights out of them, and they get to claim that on their federal taxes so that you get to help pay the bill. Now, I'm not for that, but look, they were successful at it because they started early on in the process. Well, look, two can play at that game too. So now we're looking at red lines for the future bill, because this bill's likely going to be changed and come back from the Senate. And I think there's a lot of folks that are very, very concerned, as always, about how much money we're spending, Chris. And,
yes.
We've talked to the president about it. He agrees. You know what he said when, I'm careful to characterize the conversations with the president. He said, generally, look, I agree with you. I just can't get these guys to vote for that stuff. And I understand. But, we spent another $350 billion for this dang SALT credit. And if people in New York want to pay those taxes, California, Illinois, New Jersey, those are essentially the four SALT states. Well, God bless them. That's their business. That's who they vote for. But we shouldn't have to pay for that as well. And I immediately, the next morning, Chris, I immediately had a neighbor, 2 days later, that my neighbor drove by and stopped and said, why do I have to pay my state taxes and their state taxes too? And he's right.
Congressman, I guess if you want, Screed from Stephen Miller on X said this, and I was interested to get your take on this. He was very upset that he felt many, including Republicans, were mischaracterizing this bill. He said this bill saves more than $1.6 trillion in mandatory spending, including the largest ever welfare reform. It's a remarkable achievement. He says, I also see claims that this bill increases deficit. It's a lie based on CBO accounting gimmicks. Income tax rates from 2017 were set to expire in September. They were always planned to be permanent. And the CBO says maintaining current tax rates adds to the deficit. He calls that bunk. Now, Rand Paul, for instance, over in the Senate, he's not alone, says that it does add to the deficit. So who's right here, Scott?
Well, Stephen's right that the current tax rates that if they were allowed to expire would increase everybody's taxes in Pennsylvania at least $2,400 per individual, right? So, the CBO says that the current tax rates, if we keep them, actually cost us money. I agree with Stephen on that's not correct. That having been said, while it does achieve remarkable spending, spending cuts, maybe historic spending cuts, it's also, we've been spending at record levels. And so we are going to have a deficit next year. I don't think this president wants one. The CBO, if we're going to characterize them or use them as the reference, I think has it somewhere between $450 billion and $550 billion for next year that we're not going to have that revenue. Now, I know that growth is going to be up because the economy is going to be booming and so on and so forth, but we're spending record amounts of money. I don't think the president wants to be in deficit. I don't either. And guess what? Forget Stephen, forget Scott Perry, forget everybody else. The people that actually invest, not people that look at CBO scores and make up some kind of dreamland in Washington, D.C. This is the bond market and the stock market, folks, that invest and gamble with their own money. they have said, look, this is not going to continue. As the day we were passing the bill, the bond, the 30-year bond went up 100 basis points. They're telling us this game of just creating money and spending it is not going to last much longer, and I think we all need to take heed of that.
So is it possible, Scott Perry, Congressman, Pennsylvania's 10th Congressional District, that the Senate might actually do more cutting than you guys? That's something that I've heard. Now, not something the Senate typically is known for doing, but could the Senate actually behave in a more conservative way than House Republicans, or is that a pipe dream?
No, look, well, I will tell you, we have heard that. I'm talking to many senators that are saying that, and it might be just the right circumstances where a few of the members are more conservative than House members, and that certain members that are normally more liberal are running for re-election next year. So we call that in cycle, which is going to force them to at least act rhetorically as they're more conservative than they normally are. Does that equal a more conservative bill regarding the finances, regarding spending? I sure hope so. That's what we fought for. Now, the Senate has been saying the same thing the whole way along, but remember, as they were saying it, they sent us this framework a month and a half or two ago that was pathetic. So talk is cheap. I hope they put up right now. I want to see something more conservative. We got it as far as we could in the House, but they should do better.
What would can you just briefly explain the process one more time for folks that maybe don't understand it? The Senate comes up with a version, much like you guys on the House side came up with a version. Then you got to get together and agree on something together, right?
That's right. If they change the bill, then they're going to have to send it back to us to pass it. And they've already implied or messaged or signaled that they are going to change the bill. We don't know how much. But I will tell you, things like the Green New Deal, the president calls it the Green New Scam. Every single Republican, House and Senate, voted against that thing when it was called the Inflation Reduction Act in the House of Representatives. Now, there's a bunch of Republicans that are saying, oh, we can't cut the subsidies. Oh, it's related to jobs. You know what? I said in a hearing, we could subsidize making dog crap for $1 trillion, and I bet Americans would find a way to make a lot of dog crap if they could get to $1 trillion. That's what's happening here, and that's one of the things the Senate needs to fix.
And so bottom line this for us. July 4th was the date that we heard Besant as well as Thune kind of target. Is that optimistic, or can this get done in a month, do you think, roughly?
Well, I think it is optimistic, but I also would say this. The pressure is building. The pressure is enormous. I was out for Memorial Day doing parades and different things, and a lot of people were talking to me about the bill. They want to see something passed, and they want to see something passed. They want to know the market, if anything else, wants certainty, and people understand that whether you're directly in the market or just through your retirement. And the prospect of taxes going up at record levels, again, $2,400 on the average for a Pennsylvania individual, that's not exciting to people, and they know that if the taxes are going to remain low, this bill has to pass. There's a whole lot of other things in it to talk about which are good, but there are some things that are concerning that can be and should be fixed.
Yeah, limiting judicial overreach, defunding Planned Parenthood, those are some of the things I heard are in this that aren't getting the attention they're due, in my opinion.
I agree with you. The defunding Planned Parenthood is an awesome victory. There's no reason the federal government should be paying for that. Now, limiting judicial overreach, it does some, but I think we could do a lot more there, too.
Yeah. It's exciting. I mean, I know everything's focused, understandably and appropriately so, in the fiscal, but there are some really interesting wins in this that I hope we can unpack in the future. But, Congressman, I'm grateful always to kick off the week with you to give us some framework. I hope we can have you back as you guys sort through things with the Senate.
Well, it's going to be busy. It's not going to end anytime soon, so I'll see you on the next opportunity.